I'm Maartje Poelman. I'm from the Netherlands. I have a very difficult name, so I listen to a lot of different variants of it. So, no, that is perfect. I have a background in nutrition and dietetics and in public health science. I've worked for a few months as a clinical dietitian before I started my master's in public health science. I did my PhD in public health science as well, but work now at the Department of Human Geography since 4 years, which is a kind of different setting, but my research is into the food environment. And I want to better understand how this food environment interacts with individual behavior, but also how we can improve food environments to stimulate healthier food choices. So we have a focus group, which is Future Food Utrecht, in which it's an interdisciplinary group where we work together with more researchers to better understand food-related issues. And I'm also involved in the Global GeoHealth Data Center, which in Dutch is abbreviated as GGHDC, which is very good for the English people. I'm funded by the Netherlands Organization for Scientific Research, but we do some interventions with supermarkets, especially Albert Heijn, so I want to mention it as well. So first of all, I thought I'd give you a little bit of a view where I'm from. I'm from the Netherlands, so if I show this picture in the Netherlands, people say, oh my God, what is Australia, a massive country? Probably you're not very surprised, but I also want to pinpoint how tiny the Netherlands is. So we're very tiny, but we have 70 million people living there. So it's very crowded. So for me, it's very spacious here and very green and wide and big houses. And so it's a completely different environment I'm living in. A lot of people always ask, what is the typical Dutch food? What is the Dutch food culture? And I think, we really like the stampot, which is like mashed potatoes with kale or with carrots and with a sausage on top. The bitterballs are, the favorite snack. So I must admit, I miss them here as well, but they're totally not healthy and deep fried. We have the herring, which is on the bottom below here, which is a salted raw fish. It's very nice. And even in part of the Netherlands, we have different ways of eating them. So where I grew up in the Northeast, you just hang it in your mouth and eat it. But in Amsterdam, you eat it chopped with pickles and onions. It's very nice. So if you go there, it looks disgusting, but it's very tasty. We love sandwiches, boterhammen. This is sort of like our breakfast, our lunch, but also our dinner if we don't have time to cook. And the stroopwafels or stroopwafels in English. You can buy them here, so go for it, but they're not very healthy. We love cheese, so we have massive cheese departments in supermarkets, but also separate. And we're also, I'm not proud of that, famous of our snack walls. So in the cities, you put €1 in it and you can open the box and you can get the snack out. So a little bit of the food environment in the Netherlands is my research. I thought I'd give you a bit of an insight. I can't ignore the biking. So this is a typical Amsterdam canal. You see bikes everywhere. The guy on the bike is our prime minister. He always goes on his bike to work. This is the bike flat near Central Station. So you can park your bike there and parents bring their children to school in the bakfiets. So we love biking. I have a bike here as well, an electric bike, because it's quite hilly. I'm now in Melbourne, but it's also quite hot in summer to bike here.
And we're just not sharing screens, so the Zoom people can only look at your face.
Oh dear. Sorry. Any screen ready? Yep, sorry. Good, no worries. And I thought I'd give you also an overview. It's the obesity rates, the differences in country. But if you compare the Netherlands with Australia, like with respect to health and obesity, we're doing quite well, so to say. So approximately 30 to 40% of the adults in the Netherlands are obese, whereas this percentage is, I think it will be up to 30 now in Australia. So yes, also being here, living here, well, I didn't mention that yet, but I worked for a year as visiting researcher at Deakin University in Melbourne, so that's why it's very easy to come over to be here today. Yeah, so it's also like experiencing to live here in a different environment and setting. So it's for me as an individual also very learnful to see what an environment can do to a person if you change it. So my research is in food environment and food choices, and particularly looking at the current food environment we're living in, and also reflecting on food environments of decades ago. Well, the hunting, I've never been there, and this is more of a traditional grocery when my mom was young and my grandma is telling about. But also how this changed on people's lives and impact on food choices. So that's where my interest is. Currently, I'm conducting a study which is called Geographies of Food Consumption, and I want to better understand how the food environment is impacting on our food choices and on our health. So in a lot of studies, which I'm doing myself as well, is that we look at the home environment of individuals and see, okay, how many food outlets are around the house, or for example, how many fast food outlets are accessible in 500 meters around the house, and how is that associated with people's fast food intake, or we did a study on cardiovascular disease as well. But we're moving, so we're moving to time and space. So we're not only staying at home, we're only eating within 500 meters of our environment. So with this study, we want to better understand where people are going and what they're buying. So you see here a map. This is me being in several different places. So what we do is we developed a smartphone application, and we asked people which tracked the GPS, so we knew where people were going. And once people purchased something or ate something, we asked them to track that in the application. And also we asked some extra questions like, how do you feel? Like, are you tired? Are you stressed? Are you in a rush? Who are you with? What is the type of place you're buying this? Just to get a better understanding where people purchase foods and what type of foods and what they eat. And in this study, I also want to look at individual factors that interfere with these choices. So if we look in the Netherlands, there's a tiny percentage of individuals that is capable of making healthy choices within the obesogenic environment, whereas a lot of people not. And yeah, just to understand if it's what individual factors are interfering with that. So that's also how I came on the food literacy. So also here, time, stress, like time poverty, or people's mental stress, how is that impacting with people's choices? So that's why I also wanted to take food literacy into account. So then I got into this jungle of the food literacy, because I got the grant in 2015, and food literacy was like this massive topic in the Netherlands. There was a lot going on to get like mandatory food education in primary school, which they're still pleading for, and there's a lot of advocacy for, to get that in the courses. And we thought, oh, we can measure that, but that was a bit of easy thinking. And then I thought, okay, well, I have to start my data collection, and then we came to the point how to measure it, and there were like some measures on food labeling or on cooking, but we thought this is bigger holistic concept. And we also came to the work of Helen. Helen already gave the definition, but if we looked at the Dutch definition, it was much smaller, less holistic, more focused on healthy eating, on prepare and eating healthy food. So we tried to sort of combine these two definitions, and thought we have to think about a measure for the Netherlands. So we organized an expert meeting with people working as well in research, but also from the Dutch Nutrition Center, dietitians were involved. And using the framework of Helen, as well, the framework of Sorensen on health literacy, we start thinking, okay, what are these concepts that are fitting in all these models? So we came up with 144 items. I'm not going to explain the whole study in detail. I printed some of the studies, put them there. So if you're interested, take one. We ended up with 50 items remained that fit in the framework of Helen. And then I think the biggest challenge came because we had this very holistic, abstract concepts of food literacy. And then we thought, yeah, we as researchers understand this, but like, does everybody understand it? It was like not on a simple language. So then we sent it to a translator and we said, okay, we want to make a questionnaire that is understandable for everybody. And then we were a bit shocked because everything was made so simple that we thought the whole idea of the whole meaning of what we want to measure is now out of it because it's so simple. And then we got into the debate. Do we use difficult, complex questions that maybe a few of us understand? Or are we going to the simple questions that 95% of the population understands? So we end up with the final choice, so with the simple questions. But on the other hand, gets you to the thinking again is, are you now really measuring what you're measuring? In the end, we ended up with 29 items related to, well, for example, food preparation skills, resilience and resistance, healthy snacking, food labels were in it in the end, daily food planning, healthy budgeting. And then we looked in this study how this was related to the intake of fish, vegetables, and fruits, and as well with the intake of snacks, candies, and sugar-sweetened beverages. And I think what Helen said, it can be indirectly related to healthy eating, but we only included the items where we thought this is straight away related to healthy eating. So we did a cross-sectional study, so it's still only associations that we measured, but we saw that people with higher levels of food literacy skills eat healthier and were also less engaged in eating unhealthy. And we also gave the questionnaire to dietitians, just because we thought this is sort of the summum population that probably scores higher, and we saw indeed a difference between dietitians and the general population. So I'm not going to go much more in detail of this, but again, if you have any questions, let me know afterwards. And my question is, can food literacy protect us for the tempting food environment? So if we have this ultimum summum of being food literate, can we then protect ourselves? I don't know. So one of the studies we try is to do that in the food track study, just to see that people are very food literate, but that have like many food temptations, are they better to navigate? So that is one of the research questions. Unfortunately, the researchers in the audience now always takes much more time than you want. So I hope to find these answers, hopefully this year or early next year. But what we also did is that we did some intervention studies. So I want to highlight one of the studies we did, which is done by Marlijn Huiting. She is a PhD student at the VU University, and I worked together on this with Jaap Seidel and Koosje Dijkstra as well from the VU University. We do all kind of supermarket interventions on the one hand to see if we create a healthier supermarket, are people making healthier choices? But we also did a food literacy intervention among high school students. So in the Netherlands, everybody takes his sandwiches, his boterhammen to school, so everybody's eating that. But there's free time during the breaks and in lunch, and students just go to the supermarket. So around 12 o'clock, there are massive lines of students because they can't go in all, because they're afraid that they're stealing stuff. So there's like a guard, and then 2 on 2 they can go in the supermarket. So we did some measures as well, but this is basically what you see. A lot of energy drinks, savory pastries, snacks, sugar sweetened beverages. These are very popular. Sausage bread, croissants, well, you name it, they eat it. And 90%, almost 90% is going to the supermarkets during high school. So we thought, can we develop a food literacy intervention specifically for the supermarket, specifically during the school time? It was given by people working in the supermarkets, which were slightly older than the students themselves. So we thought they're maybe aligned better with people, with peers than with dietitians that gonna tell them what is healthy. So we had the healthy supermarket coach, and so they went through the supermarket. It was sort of like a safari, but they also learned how to buy a healthy snack or a healthy lunch for a low budget. And what we saw in the first study we did, we thought, well, we saw what we expected. So people got more knowledge and thought, oh yeah, we're gonna buy healthier foods, we understand it, we know how to do it. But in the end, in the second study we did, and it's all in preparation, this study, is that we saw that here we have the baseline, and then we did one directly after the intervention follow-up and 2 weeks after. And we have the comparison schools in which we didn't do any intervention, so they just went along, any intervention. And we just looked at the healthy and the unhealthy products they bought. And here we see the unhealthy products, and basically in every measurement, the unhealthy products were purchased. So again, we see an increase in knowledge and self-efficacy, but in the end, in the environment where people have to make the choice, the unhealthy choice is purchased. So yeah, then you think, do they not know enough? Don't they want it? Or can you just think do we have to look at the environment? Is it the environment that is providing, that it makes it so easy to purchase all these unhealthier stuff? And I think we also not have to forget taste, because I think that, it's known from research, is one of the most important choices. So I think it's important to think of these things. So we also did another study. Joris Timmermans, he was a student with me, and we looked at the local school food environment. Again, students go there often, but what can they actually purchase there, and what is in discounted? We all like sale, especially the Dutch. We like cheap stuff. And we also looked at public advertisements. So what is more promoted in the surroundings? So again, what we saw, so we here have the unhealthy products and the healthier one. And I just now selected the sweet and savory snacks. So in 50% of all outlets where you can buy food, there were sweets and savory snacks. 25% was discounted, and 7.5% of these stuff was promoted in the local environment. But if we look at fruit, that was only available in 23% of the outlets. 14% was discounted, and 2.5% was advertised. Well, if we look at these differences, we see that the push for unhealthy purchases and the availability is much higher for the unhealthier snacks that students will buy during school time, rather than the healthier stuff. I think that Jean already said that, like, should we create like these environments that will endorse people to choose healthy foods? So how supportive is the food environment in being food literate? And I already like this picture with the mountain, and how steeper the mountain is, how less supportive the environment is to make healthy choices. And the slope is, well, how unhealthy it is. So the more unhealthy, the steeper the slope, and the healthier, how lower the slope. And we now expect from people to push the ball themselves in this unhealthy food environment. So we really focus on the individual only. If we increase food literacy, they should get the effort themselves to push that ball and to make the healthy food choice. But shouldn't we go maybe to an environment where we lower the slope, and where an environment is created where people maybe need less individual capacities, but also have an environment which stimulate them to make healthy choices? So should we create a food literate food environment? And that's also something I've been talking about with Helen, and I think that's a lot of work as well going on in Australia as well, how to create these healthier environments. And I think this is one of the models which I always think is good to have a look at. So it's the socio-ecological model, to always see the individual in his context. So with family and peers and friends around them, organization, so where you're going at work, at school, workplaces. So take all these settings into account. Also the community where you're living, how's that designed, what is the access there? And also the public policy. So what is done within countries on political level? On the one hand, maybe to educate and stimulate healthier food choices, or by cooking classes, or by information or food literacy interventions. But also on the other hand, what are countries doing to create healthier food literacy supportive food environments? And with respect to food literacy, and I think this already taps in on the discussion we had before, like what is it, and if you have food literacy. We also should look at other factors, I think, and also if we look at the literature that interfere, so the time stress, people's habits, work-life balance, what are your norms for income and poverty, and I think Danielle will probably tap into that afterwards. Daily hazards, I think these are all factors we should look at, and yeah, if we're looking at food literacy that interfere with it. So we're gonna currently conducting a study on this, just to better understand the effect of all these factors on food choices as well. So just to conclude, I think food literacy is indeed important, but the measurement is very complex. And I also think that we need to consider food literacy in a wider context, so not only looking at any individual. And well, as a dietitian myself and as a practitioner, I know you really want to help people and support people, but I think we also should look at a discipline that we gonna push to healthier environments and maybe push there as a how do you say that, profession. So can we also force well, maybe the policy to make changes, and maybe to create a food environment that's supportive of food literacy. So I think it has been studied, but there are also a lot of questions. So happy to contribute to that in the upcoming years. And thank you for coming, and thank you, Helen, for organizing again.